Okay.
Okay, are we here?
Yeah, one sec.
Okay.
Let me just turn up this just for. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ray. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Just a little more. All right. And okay. Yeah. I'm ready whenever.
Okay,
Let's go.
well, let's start off. We're joined by Ray, who is, I guess, did you create Doge for Robots? Is that something that you created, or?
Yeah, it's basically just my personal thing that I created. I'm really the only person who does cryptocurrency on my robotics team. So yeah.
Okay. So we're joined by Ray, who has Doge4Robots, which he turned to the R Doge community to fundraise for his robot team. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his team, a little bit about the FTC, as well as just in general about cryptocurrency and how he got involved. So let's just start with you, Ray. What brought you to Dogecoin, really?
Um. Well, let's see. I'm the first time I heard about it was with NASCAR sponsorship because I saw it on CNN Tech, and then I came here basically like 3 or 4 months ago, so I'm not exactly I can't exactly remember what specifically brought me to RSS Dogecoin. So I don't know. One day I just decided, hey, I'm gonna go to Dogecoin, and so I just went there and started for. And so I made my Reddit account specifically for Dogecoin. So
Okay.
I've been around. So yeah, that's I'm not exactly can't exactly remember the exact. There was a reason, but I forgot it. It's been like
Okay.
3 months now.
Okay, so you've been part of the community, you would say, for about 3 months. And what made you think to take your personal thing here of the robots team and say, hey, Dogecoin, I have this idea. Would you help me out?
Well, we got a lot of blank space on our robot, and we at the time when I started, we only had two sponsors, and one of them just gave us a bunch of juice, and the other one, I forgot what they did. I don't know, they gave us like $100 or something. So we needed a lot of sponsors, and I realized that if so, Dogecoin sponsored NASCAR, and it gave a lot of I well partially it just sort of seemed like it would fit because when I told my friends, I was telling them about Dogecoin before I started it, and they were all interested, and so I realized that it would be not only a good way to give Dogecoin publicity because there's a lot of people who would be interested in about it and would see it on a robot, but it
Mm-hmm.
would also just be a way to get some sponsorship, and it would be fun to have a Doge sticker on the side of the robot. So that's another good reason that I. So, and I also saw and looking at it, I found that another team in the past also started a they had done a campaign like a year ago, and
Mm-hmm.
so I saw that and they'd gotten some good support. So I figured that people would still, if there, I understood that the community was, I guess, a lot larger a year ago and more active, but I figured that it would. Um, I don't know if they put stickers in the robot, but I thought that anyway, yeah, that's sort of the reason.
It's just to put a sticker on the robot and just show your love for Dogecoin and that, we kind of sponsored you there. Is pretty much what you wanted to do.
Yeah, and again, it also, there's a lot of people that see the robot. Our next competition we're going to, I think it's a dual ring event, and so there's, I think, 32 teams, which with generally at least 10 to 30 people, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's also a bunch of judges and whatnot. So it is also a good way just to, even just get people interested in it because people have asked about our sponsors, asked what they do, and so now we have a Doge on the side of our. Now, well, we will. We're going to print the sticker soon, but we'll have a Doge on the side of our robot, which will give a lot of good publicity to ISD and whatnot.
Okay. Well, Ray, explain to me what it is that this team, this robot building that you're doing, that for people that are unfamiliar with the FTC challenge and what your team is about.
Well, so basically, it's not a I mean, like, so the FTC is a nonprofit organization that organizes robotics competitions, and the idea is to encourage STEM education for high school students.
Okay.
And
What is STEM? Because there's when people hear that they're unsure what STEM means and why it's important. So what is STEM?
yes, so STEM would be, I think, science, technology, is it education and mathematics?
I think it's engineering and
I know the
mathematics.
there it is. Okay, it's engineering mathematics, and so basically it's just a cute acronym to describe just those fields, and that it encourages these. It's a program which teaches and gets students to team build in an environment which is similar to an engineering environment, which if you become an engineer, you might do later in life.
Okay.
Um, and so it's a the building itself. I mean, the best way to view it is they've got a video which I posted a couple times to the Doge4Robot. I could in the future I'll make sure to repost that. But there's a video which just shows every year FTC issues a challenge, and
Hmm.
the teams across the country have to figure out ways to meet this challenge, and so you get a lot of diversity of design depending on that how different teams decide to assess and deal with the challenge. But so this year, and basically it's just there's these rolling tubes, and you need to get balls into the rolling tubes. And it sounds simple, but it's not, because the tubes they're anywhere from, like, I think 30 centimeters, 60, 90, or 120, and the robot can be a max height of 18 inches. Or it has to fit within an 18 by 18 by 18 inch sizing cube. So the difficulties a way of creating a robot that can accurately not only retrieve balls from the ground, knock over stands, and get the balls into the tubes. And so, I mean, it's a fruitless effort and not something that would actually be usable in real life. But the
Hmm.
skills that you learn and utilize to create that robot is where the FTC is great, because within the program, it's not even the STEM doesn't even fully sum up what you learn from FTC, because you also get a education in business management, because it's an expensive to run a robotics team, because the FTC charges, I think it's $125 for every competition you enter, and then
Okay.
1,000 if you make it to Worlds. You also have to be able to get people to places. You have to afford food and whatnot. So it's an expensive event to do, and it teaches you not only improve your ability as a PR person, but you also learn about finance management and whatnot. And the other thing that you do that's also cool is just the team building of it, because when you're with these people for like 6 hours a week or something, and you're there learning all this stuff, you get to know people, and you become better at working in a team.
Okay. Well, let's break down the concept of the challenge in itself. Is it both a software and a hardware task that you have to do to build this robot?
Yeah, so initially, the first thing you've got to design is just how to physically create the robot, because the robot,
Okay.
of course, has to be able to physically maneuver these balls. And so,
And
what
you
you're going to
have
end up,
you have limitations, like it has to be a certain size, correct? It has to be
yeah,
this
we have
18.
it. Yeah, it's got
Eight,
an 18-inch squared silent cube that we
okay.
have to be able to fit the robot in. Now, there's no limit on expansion height, so we can expand it or widen it, I guess, as far as you want.
Mhm.
And there's also a bunch of limits on different sorts of parts you can use and stuff to keep it fair and not
So
super
so you
expensive.
couldn't like get like a lawnmower and put it on there to power it up, or some fancy battery that runs
Yeah,
forever. You have to kind of use these simple components that everyone has access to.
to an extent, they've opened it up a little bit, but for one thing, I mean, for the fancy battery, part of it limitation would just be the cost, and
Mhm.
it depends. A major part of it's safety too.
Mhm.
Your robot has to be. I mean, their robots are sort of dangerous just naturally, but anything that actually could be a serious danger would also be a problem. But the main things that, like, you have to be careful with are, like, you can use like, for example, a team, we use these IR beacons, which allow us for the robot to find the center of structure. And
Okay.
so the with IR beacons, you can, if you want, you can use a mirror to reflect it.
Mm-hmm.
And some teams have asked if they're allowed to take the IR beacon and use a mirror to reflect it in another team, so their robot will get that will be thrown off. And so that is considered illegal because there's a general principle of it's called gracious professionalism, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't be the
Road
idea is
warrior.
that people, yeah,
You,
you don't. You save that for battle bots. But
yes.
so just there's those type of limitations, and there's also just like carbon fiber is allowed. However, the carbon fiber um, it cannot be scraped, or otherwise it will cause stuff. So there's limitations, but it previously used to be a lot more it previously there used to be a lot more limitations than there are now, but they've reduced the number of them. And the other thing that we have is like the number of motors and servos are all limited, and we've also got a limit on the type of motors and servos in order to and there's battery limit, and certain wiring has to be done with certain gauge wires and
So
whatnot.
in essence, to keep with the Dogecar NASCAR thing, there's like in NASCAR there's a limit on what you can do, like brakes, tires, and everything. So all the cars are basic, and in essence, it is just about who's the better engineer and who's the better driver for these
Yeah,
competitions. Would you say?
and so, yeah, that's the other. So then once you've built your robot, you have to program it. And so we use a Objective-C based program known as Robot C, which is what you use for when almost, I believe, all teams use for programming the robots. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's another skill that students use. And not all students are programmers. I'm not one right now. I'm probably going to be one next year. But and then the other thing too is that in addition to programming the robot, which is a major part of it, but we've also got to actually drive the robot. And so you've also got drivers and a coach who physically use joysticks, or actually no, we use like PS3 controllers to control the robot. And so there's also that element to the game where you've got to actually have a skilled driver who's proficient at using the robot.
So in this competition, what students are learning is first they have to build the actual hardware of the robot. They would then second have to come up with a program to make the hardware work. But third, even if they were to do the hardware and the software correctly, they have to make it so that an individual can actually drive the robot.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
that. I mean, driving seems like a simple matter. The
Mhm.
programming behind it, I mean, the programming is not as complex as the autonomous programming. However, it is important. You have to have effective programming, but a major part of it's just the controller layout. Because on our robot, I don't know how many we have. Like, I think we use 6 motors and like 9 servos or something.
Mhm.
And so you've got all of those different ones. And so there's also just all kinds of stuff like, for example, with effective code, we have a arm which is on top of a lift, and if the lift went up while the arm was over the lift, it would destroy the arm. And so we programmed it so you cannot move the lift if the arm is not engaged. And so that way these what we call system locks ensure the robot's safety and that it will not damage itself or damage other
And
robots.
it also kind of keeps the human error part down because maybe you hit something or nudge something in a little wrong way, and all of a sudden your lift goes up and you lose an arm or a wheel.
Yeah, that's the important thing. Yeah, because the biggest problem, driver error, would be the reason why that would happen,
Mhm.
and it's impossible to avoid it. And
Mhm.
so by using the best programming we can, we're able to minimize driver error, and our ultimate goal is to almost minimize the need of a driver. I mean, we're designing more, implementing more things into our program, which should eventually allow the driver to simply click a button and then the robot will engage certain elements. And we already have some of that on the robot right now.
Are you permitted to do that in the challenges to be as autonomous, or do you have to have a driver?
They encourage autonomy because
Mhm.
it's a lot. it's a lot more challenging to develop an effective autonomous strategy than it
Mm-hmm.
is to simply have a good driver or someone who plays video games a lot, and so the master at driving the robot. And so their goals, I mean, they want to have creative solutions, and the simple solution is just have the robot entirely driver controlled, and the more difficult solution is to figure out how to implement locks and different mechanisms to get the to minimize the need for the driver doing what the driver does.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. You stated that you weren't a programmer and some students are a programmer. Were you more of a hardware person when you went and tried to be part of this team, or were
I oh sorry yeah um, well for myself I sort of basically do everything. I'm hardware is not actually my goal is more software, but
Mhm.
we're gonna hard hardware wise, I mean, I built parts of the robots. I've also, I guess, in some ways, I do software because I have also designed models for 3D printing to print for the robot.
Okay.
Um, and then I've also, I mean, as I said, I've done this Dogecoin fundraising, so I've been doing that. I've also I did some, I don't know, I just sort of do all sorts of things. Scouting when we're at the tournaments. I'm going to be a coach for the next competition. So that's one other thing that's really positive about this team is that really there's not really. So I've been on other teams before where you're
Mhm.
defined and you have to play a certain role because
Mhm.
they're going to train you in that role and that's going to be it. But here it's pretty chill and we're just able to sort of we can find a niche and stick with it, or you can just sort of float around and try a bit of everything and finally figure out what you're the most interested in.
Well, Ray, how did you get involved in this? I mean, did you see an advertisement in your school, or is this something you heard about and you always knew you wanted to do if you could?
Well, it started in, I guess, sixth grade, back in middle school.
Okay.
Um, the FTC is a part of a larger organization called First Robotics, and
Mhm.
First Robotics organizes several different levels of competition, all the way down from junior FLL, which is meant for elementary school students,
Okay.
through FLL middle school students. FTC is high school, and FRC is also high school. And so I joined an FLL team in sixth grade, and I just saw that for like my school bulletin thing because I was interested in building. I've always been a Lego builder, and so F, FLL you build Lego robots, and it's still incredibly complex. The programming is just using a simple block program, but it uses a lot of the elements which you do in FTC and FRC, and
Mhm.
so I went through that in seventh and eighth grade. I was co-captain in eighth grade of that team, and so then I went to my first high school and was a member of the FRC team. And FRC is an older robotics competition where the robots are much larger and the field is also much larger. It's also a much more expensive competition to run and it's much larger teams. And so I was there for about I don't know, 6 months or something, and then I moved down to my new school where I have been for about a year now.
Mhm.
And so I only joined the FTC team this year, but I've been involved in robotics since sixth grade.
Okay. Well, then I have to ask you this. What was the first thing as a child that you took apart that you wanted to know what the insides are? Because you talked about building Legos. So was it the VCR, the remote control, the TV, the lawnmower?
Probably probably pens. I took apart a lot of pens and was failed to get them back together. But
Uh-huh.
of anything that I took apart that like actually was like something that I probably we had a broken digital camera that we took apart at some point. We also at some point I had a broken DS that we smashed with a baseball.
Okay.
Or no, there's a golf club and we examined the insides, but. Um, I was probably building Legos before I was doing either of those things. I was building
Okay.
Legos since I was like 3 years old or something. But
Well, have you expanded beyond since your middle school, the Lego building? Have you done any? I know there's lots of competitions or anything like that, or has robotics taken up that building passion from you for you?
I just don't have the money or time to
Okay.
do much building. I've been learning programming and built. Well, I built a computer, so that's a bit more advanced in building Lego. So that would be I built 2 computers actually, so that would be the building passion, I guess. But
Was that like a
uh,
desktop computer, a laptop, or what
yeah,
type of computer?
desktop.
Desktop. Okay.
Desktop. That's what I'm using right now, actually.
For
It's
gaming,
really
was it for gaming
uh,
purposes or just to build it?
partially. I wanted to get a computer that would support free monitors, and then also I needed I wanted better gaming performance. I also do for modeling, for 3D modeling, you need a powerful. I wanted a better graphics card, and I also do some programming. So I have a quad core i5, so that's also helps out with the speed of that and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, it does.
yeah.
Okay. Well, with the competition, the teams, and the fact that this team has allowed you to kind of move through and do different roles, where do you see like as the future for yourself as far as robot building or engineering? Do you plan on going to engineering school, software school? What are your goals?
Uh, Tentatively, I'm planning for a degree in computer science because
Mm-hmm.
it's engineering's fascinating, but I don't know the job market for it as well as I know the job market for computer science. And uh, in the area where I am in Silicon Valley, it's a very profitable and field with a lot of opportunity. And so that's sort of what I'm leaning towards right now. Not to say that I've completely shut out the idea of engineering, and I'm still interested in it. I just don't know the field opportunities as much and sort of the difficulty to succeed in it. But
Mm-hmm.
right now, that's where I'm leaning toward. So
And do you
complete
think
comp
do,
style.
do you think this competitions that you've been part of, these robot competitions, has it done its purpose in interesting kids into STEM? I mean, would you have gone into software engineering if you hadn't been part of this?
I think I probably still would have, but I think it does. It does influence a lot of people, and I think that it's a program which it's it provides an alternative to a sport or whatever, and something that you can do. I mean, it's I think it does accomplish its goal very well, and even if it doesn't convince people that they want to get a degree in that, it gives
Mm-hmm.
them skills that can be used in all sorts of different fields. Um, so I don't know if I can't speak for myself. I think probably I would have still ended up with my mindset as I am without the robotics program, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it at least aided me in clarifying that it's something I'm interested in.
Okay. Now you said that you have a competition that is coming up. What does this competition entail? I mean, you're going up against a larger group. I mean, how does this competition work? Is it like sports where there's, you win, you lose, and then you go to the playoffs? I mean, how does this go?
Well, so yeah, we have already. This is our third competition of the year, and
Mm-hmm.
the way it works in robotics is you've got these local qualifying events, which allow you to qualify for your local regional event,
Mm-hmm.
and when you qualify for regionals, you go to regionals, and then like I don't know the top 16 teams or something move on to super regionals, which is the entire west coast of the United States.
Okay.
And then the once if you move on super regionals, you go to the World, which is in St. Louis. And so right now we qualified at our first qualifying event to go to regionals, which is the competition after the next competition. So and so we had already signed up for the next 2 competitions, and so we have no actual need to qualify at these competitions because we're a pre-qualified team.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's useful because our robot, the competition that we qualified at, which was back in like October, our robot was a paperweight due to a wiring error, and so it literally wasn't able to move for all of our rounds of competition, and so we won on the result of a I believe it was an Inspire Award, which means that you like inspire people to do robotics and stuff, but it's not based on your robot's performance. And so during the next competition, we ended up placing second place and actually helping our alliance team qualify for regionals. So the way it basically works, the tournament layout is you've got about 16 teams per normal competition, and they play each approximately 5 rounds, of two-on-two competitions, and
Okay.
so the ranking system is very complicated and confusing. It's based off of the number of points you score and the number of points your opponent scores. And so I don't even know how to describe it easily, but it's a complicated ranking system. You're ranked from Team 1 to Team 16. Then, at the end of the day, the top four teams get to choose four teams that are not in the top four, and they will go into a elimination style playoff event at the end of the competition. And we did that in our last competition, and we picked a sixth place team, and we beat the third and like seventh place team, and then we lost in the finals. But so that's how the layout works. And the qualification for the qualifiers is also very complicated and sort of hard to explain. But basically, there's a ranking of different how prestigious each award is, and the top three prestigious awards get to qualify. And so we ended up qualifying with like a number six prestigious award because of the teams ahead of us had already pre-qualified.
Okay. And are these competitions, are they like televised on a science channel? Would someone find it on a YouTube? If there was anybody out there that would be interested in following your team? Or
Well, it depends competition to competition.
okay.
Um, Media is allowed to the events.
Mhm.
However, in regards like normally they're not recorded live. However, our team does record footage of most of our rounds.
Okay.
They're not on YouTube right now because we've got a pro. We don't have really anyone willing to host a YouTube channel. I would, but my internet is way too slow to properly do it.
Mhm.
Um, and so most teams do record their videos, and many just keep it for practice and reference after the competition.
Mhm.
However, I think if someone really sought out the footage, you would be able to find it. So in the future, probably next year, we will hopefully have a team channel. I
Mhm.
don't think live streams would be in effect because the FTC does not allow you to use like 4G signals during the competition because it interferes with robot communications, and
Okay.
so it would be difficult to do any sort of live event stream. So um, I will hopefully post some more YouTube footage to my channel. Right now, all I have is just practice in the garage of our mentor, and so right now there's not really any way to follow it. There's not really. Unfortunately, there's not much right now. However, the if we do make it to Worlds, which is, I mean, we have a pretty good robot. There's nothing that would stop us from making it, but there's always you can just have bad luck and not make it. But
Mhm.
I believe Worlds may be televised on like ESPN free or ESPN2 or something.
Okay.
So the upper echelon competitions are televised. But they take. I mean, only like the top 1% of teams make it there. So we don't know. We made it there in 2011. This high school. So in my FRC team last year made it. So it's possible we'll make it. We'll see what happens. But right now the events unfortunately are not televised. If maybe I'll do some tweets or something on the day of the competition if we have Wi-Fi there. It sort of depends on what the school that's hosting it decides to do. But if there is, I'll post thing in Dogecoin Reddit, and people could follow there. But right now, there's nothing, unfortunately.
And how much have you raised from our Dogecoin that you've been able to apply towards your team?
Right now, I think we've got about $25. The Doge and with the Doge and Bitcoin fluctuation recently, I'm not really sure exactly how much. I think
Mhm.
about 200,000 Doge is so a good sum of money. I mean, we it's enough that we have decided that our team is enthusiastic. We're going to put at least a small Doge sticker on the robot right now. We've got enough that we think it's most students just want to see the Doge in the robot. But so we've got we will be doing that. I'm gonna I haven't been doing as much as I should right now because finals is happening, and so I've been extremely busy. And so I
Yes.
will be doing some more posts and whatnot, and trying to raise some more money. But right now we have about $25, I think, which is a pretty good sum of money to get. Yeah. So that's about what I think. Well, we have about I think 180 plus 7 Doge right now, and so that amount still we have a couple weeks until the competition, and I haven't posted in a while, so we will probably at least go over 200 by the time of the competition.
Okay, so I'm going to issue a challenge and do a little post in addition when I post this up that we can probably raise about $100 to help you with the robot. The what 125 is what each meeting or each competition costs, pretty much.
Each competition costs $125, and so that is part of the cost. The other part
Mm-hmm.
of the cost that we have is physically buying the parts for the robot is the most expensive part because we've got I mean, recently it sort of fluctuates year to year, but this year we bought a bunch of 80/20 aluminum extrusions, which cost about $300, but we should be able to use them for the next like 3 or 4 years. So that it's a thing that we'll be able to use again and again. But and then next year it's expected that the FTC will begin instead of using the current quote unquote brain of the robot, they expect that we're going to be using a new version of that called the EV free instead of the current NXT model. And so that's going to be a hefty, I don't know, probably about $300 we're going to have to spend next year.
What is
Um,
what's the difference between the two brains?
the new brain, I don't know how much it has. Way more memory, so it can store more programs. And the program storing is a major problem. We have to delete programs and reinstall them if we want to try out new programs. So that's a real pain. So that'll be a big improvement. It also has a better LCD screen. It supports more motor outs, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't a big deal because we use a different sort of motor system instead of the standard NXT motors. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just a newer module with some improved. There's some bugs in the older module, and it has built-in Wi-Fi sync and built-in Bluetooth. It also charges better, and it's got a better battery life. So just generic improvements. It's
So
actually the first time. Sorry, one sec. The last time that NXT, it's a Lego product actually, and the
mm-hmm.
first one was in like 1999. The current one we're using is from like 2006, so it's a pretty rare update. And this was released I think about a year and a half ago. So this will be a big change for FTC, but we believe it should be next year. We believe that's going to be the thing. 'Cause that's also going to be a hefty amount of money to have to pay for the new brain of the robot.
Okay, well, you were explaining about the old brain. Are you capable of maybe adding like an external hard drive if you wanted to keep so you won't have to delete and uh, keep your programs? You wouldn't have to constantly do that, or are you not allowed to add memory?
Unfortunate, Unfortunately, I don't. It's the memory. I mean, an external hard drive would be. I don't. First of all, we'd have the problem. They do not allow you to use the computer power type stuff.
Oh,
So the powering would be a problem. And the other thing is, there's just not a way to physically do that. It's a really primitive. The Lego brain thing. I mean, it's a Lego product, so it's not that doesn't have the greatest expansion ability. And
mm-hmm.
so I just don't even think there'd be a way. The brick itself just physically does not have a port, or I don't even know. I mean, I think it's got like a really small and a flash memory, so I just don't even think it's like it doesn't have a mechanical hard drive within it. So there's no way we could like replace or exchange it. So yeah, unfortunately, that
But
wouldn't be a possibility.
but with this new brain, with the ability of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, would you be able to keep like the actual programming and not on the robot, but issue commands like a server kind of type of a deal to the
You
robot?
can you can issue commands
Uh-huh.
not like you can issue commands over Wi-Fi. I think currently
Uh-huh.
because we have like a fancy FTC connector module. However, the reason why we don't do that is because we have to the communications can be a real pain, and often we have to completely shut off the computer and reboot the NXT, and that's part of the reason why this EV3 would be better.
Mhm.
However, storing files offline, I don't think the file transfer would be effective enough, because what it would mean that we'd have to have the files stored externally,
Mhm.
then transmitted to the robot, then the robot would have to transmit back to the controller what program, and then the controller would have to program the feed, and so the latency I think would be a serious issue, especially with the communication. The Unfortunately, I don't think it would be a practical solution for. It might be practical for testing.
Mhm.
However, since the EV3 already has, I believe, a lot more memory, we shouldn't have a problem with that in the future once we get an EV3.
Okay. And if you were to win these regionals or go to World, are there scholarship options for teams? Did the teams go? Money goes to the teams, the schools? What is the
This
prize?
The scholarships, actually, I don't believe there are plenty of scholarships, and they encourage all students to apply for them. So if there is
Mhm.
any person in FTC, there are scholarships. Listening, that there are scholarships that you should apply to,
Mhm.
and the scholarships are. I don't actually believe they're based on the performance of your team. I think you just like write an essay or something, and if you've been an
Mhm.
active member of any robotics team, think you qualify. And so I haven't applied for them yet because I'm only a sophomore. So they do exist, and they encourage the FTC before every competition. They encourage you to apply for them and see if you can get anything, because they're substantial. There's like I think $5,000 scholarships and stuff. So there's substantial scholarships for active FTC students, but I do not believe moving on would actually provide us with any increased chance of a scholarship. There
Mhm.
are advantages at Worlds in 2011. The members that are still in the team that went there said that there were actually recruiters from various companies recruiting the students to join their company straight out of high school. And so there's opportunities like that, but I don't think the performance affects the eligibility for scholarships.
Okay, so being you have the option of being recruited if your robot or certain parts of the robot is of significance. Companies seek that. But are there grants to go back to the various schools or school districts that have these FTC robot teams at all? Are you aware of that? Or
I believe there are startup grants
mm-hmm.
for starting the initial investment in FTC team, because
Mm-hmm.
the first year is the most expensive year because you have to physically buy all the parts that you're going to need,
Yes.
and the next year you just need to buy some refreshment parts. And so that I know there are, if a school does not have an FTC team and has never had one, I'm pretty sure at least in the FRC there are grants. I'm not sure how big they are, but the first I believe does have some grants to support startup robotics team. Our team is very old. We're like 8 years old or something. We're one of the oldest in the FTC. So,
Okay.
but the new teams, I believe, if the student wants their high school to have a team and they've got enough of the school's okay with it, I believe the school can get some sort of grant.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else you like to mention? I am going to put, links to your YouTube video and to the donation or anyone interested could donate to, but is there anything else you want to add before I let you go about the competition, about Doge4Robots, right?
Um, well, I would encourage, if you are a high school student or middle school student who is not um, who is in a high sc- is in on has a school with a robotics team, I would just encourage anyone out there to join, because I've everyone. I mean, it's a very fun thing. Even if you aren't a huge engineer, it's just a way to meet people and you learn stuff along the way. So that would be a foremost thing that I would encourage anyone who's listening to join if you have the opportunity to. And then I would also, I don't think, let's see, is there anything else? There's I will continue to. I'll start hopefully once finals is over in about a week. I'll be more active with posting stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I'll try to get some more videos up. I don't have right now. We don't have any like vehicle. We don't have any non-autonomous videos right now. So I'll try to get some more. Other than that, I don't think there's much else. Is there anything? I don't think so. I would just yeah. So I think that's basically it. I don't think I have anything else.
Okay, so when is the next date for your competition? Just to see if we can look out for that for post. And when would, if you were to make it, when would Worlds be?
Okay, so the next date for a competition is January 31st, and then I believe the regionals, which we've already pre-qualified for, is I
Hmm.
believe I think it's to be determined. They may have released it yet, but it's in a couple of months, and I'll post some more updates on that.
Hmm.
Worlds I believe is in April, and so that we'll see. It's pretty difficult to get in, but I mean, right now, if nothing went wrong, I think there wouldn't be any reason why we couldn't make it. But
Hmm.
things always go wrong, so
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But oh, actually, one other thing I did forget. Actually, if it's something that another thing, just not financially to support, but if it doesn't take much work, we've actually got FTC. I think I don't know exactly what the prize is, like if there's a scholarship for the team or something,
Hmm.
but there's a T-shirt design contest that they're having on Facebook that is like the more likes or comments you get on your T-shirt, you get points, and like out of 105 teams, the top team gets an award or something. And so we're actually in team number 4 right now as of day 2 of the competition. So we're in one team like way out in front, but we'll see what happens. But I'll post an update with that link at some point. I don't have the link offhand. It's a really absurdly long link to, but so that would be that one thing is sort of an unrelated thing, but it would be helpful for the publicity of our team and therefore the publicity of Doge too, because we are other than Smoke and Mirrors in Florida, we're the only team was sponsored by Dogecoin. So
Okay. Well, as
um
soon as you put that post up, I will add it to this and tweet about it. But do you have anything additional to add, Ray? You think you've covered
um
everything?
I think I've basically covered everything. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else unless you have any other questions. I think that's all.
Well, the
I
only
don't
other
think I have
question
anything else.
The only other question I have, and it's just because amongst my friends I've talked about this, but do you believe in a robotic apocalypse that robots will rise up or anything like that? Or are we so far away from that? I know it's
Well,
very
my
silly.
philosophy on it.
Yeah.
No, I can understand. But personally, working with robots, I
Yes.
would if a robot apocalypse did happen, I think the robots would be so crappy because with robots it seems like every if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, and with robots everything goes wrong. And I
Okay.
mean, the first competition that we went to, I'd say probably half the team's robots turned into paperweights by the end of the competition. In
Uh,
other words, they couldn't move.
yeah.
Several teams, the motors actually caught on fire, and um, so I don't think the robots would, at least in their current state, would pose much of a threat.
Uh-huh.
I don't. Should we ever get a robot to achieve sentience, it would be pretty creepy. But I wouldn't worry too much But in the meantime, I wouldn't put your life in the hands of robots because I think the robots will fail before we do.
Well, have you seen, just out of curiosity, have you seen some of that stuff with the drones and how they're thinking of for, rescue, fire and rescue, about being able to possibly either put out fires, but even lift a person if need be, especially out in sea for the Coast Guard. I saw a few like ideas on how they would might possibly do that. Do you see like an autonomous
Yeah,
helicopter or of some sort?
I could easily. I mean, I've been looking. I want to get at some point. I want to get a quadcopter with a small camera on it so I can take some aerial video. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that utilizing drones in the future would be pretty sick. I think
Mm-hmm.
the Amazon delivery drones and the pizza drones and stuff are all pretty cool. So I would see them having some very useful commercial, recreational, and I guess government. I don't know what you anyway saving live functions. I could definitely see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a you have to the main thing is that you've just yeah no I definitely those are some pretty cool stuff. I've seen some of the stuff in action. I went to like Maker Faire Bay Area and there was some pretty awesome drones and whatnot that they've already got going. And
Yes.
3D printers also are the next cool thing. That's another awesome thing that the robots teach. Not all teams do it. Our team does because our school at one point was like 3 years ago. They were lucky enough to have a little excess money in a tech budget, and so they bought a 3D printer, and we've been using that a lot for a robot because we can 3D print all kinds of cool custom parts and stuff.
So what kind of 3D printer is that? Is that the one where you can just put any like powder and it will be able to create something? Is it liquid? What type of 3D printer is it?
It's not a resin-based printer. I believe it's a just like I think an ABS or PLA plastic filament printer. It's the MakerBot replicator. I don't know which generation it is, but it's like a top of the line 3D printer. And actually, another cool thing our team did, we actually won a essay writing contest, and we won from Coca-Cola. Actually, we won a brand new 3D printer that's actually what it does is it uses recycled materials and it 3D prints things. And so the printing quality of that one won't actually be good enough to use like for parts in the robot. It's sort of a primitive 3D printer. However, we'll be able to use that one for stuff like the demonstration models and like test stuff. But the current most of the 3D printers we have will be use ABS and PLA plastic filament.
That is
which
so
is like
awesome.
It's sort of like a coil.
Yeah,
it's really fun. Actually, even my FLL team, one of the students' brothers on the FLL team back when I was in like 8th grade. His brother was at the University of Washington 3D Printer Club, and so they had a homemade 3D printer that we printed a couple things on, which we weren't able to use in the robot, but we used as models for stuff.
that is so awesome, and it's so easy because with the 3D printer you can come up with the specialized parts for your robot, but you also don't have to go out and buy stuff, so it saves on the cost for a team.
Yeah. And that's the other nice thing. They bought the 3D printer for a wood shop teacher, and he wasn't sure how much filament he needed, and so he bought like 20 times the amount of filament he should have bought. And so we have a bunch of excess filament, so we can use it to print a lot of stuff. And so that's a good thing we've got. But yeah, we've used it to print a couple things, parts just that don't even exist. Our claws that we use to scoop up the balls don't exist. We printed them. We actually have 2 different generations of them. And then we've also got some little coil things to stop rope from falling off of these washers. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, we printed those, and we also printed an anti-static thing because last year the robot during the regional competition, it failed because of anti-static problems due to other robots, and we didn't have an effective static discharge thing. So this year we 3D printed a static discharge device, and so that should hopefully, we haven't had any static problems so far. We haven't had any electrostatic problems yet, so that's good.
So that's a great tool there to prevent the robot fail. Right there, it's just having that ability. And using 3D printing to do that, that's just pretty awesome, right? That's brilliant.
It's awesome. And more teams are using 3D printers now. The biggest hurdle is just the initial cost, and so that's why and that's the nice thing. Actually, I've looked on a lot of teams won these brand new EcoCycle 3D printers from Coca-Cola, like we did, and so hopefully a lot more teams have the opportunity to be able to use these 3D printers because. The biggest cost is the printer itself costs like $600 initially, but the reward afterwards is you've got all these awesome custom options, and you can also do it to print cool stuff. Like we've printed these little custom like keychain things with our team number on it that we plan to eventually give out to judges or whatever. And so there's also you can print cool custom stuff, and also another potential thing we're debating is we could actually print stuff and then sell it for a fundraiser for the robotics team too by 3D printing stuff and then selling the stuff as a fundraiser. So
you can like print the logo of your team or like a mini version of the robot and people can have it on as a keychain. I mean.
Yeah, and at the end of the year, I think we're going to try to print enough of those keychain things for our team to be able to so each of us can have one. But yeah, so that's just some other, that's just more fun stuff that we're able to do with the 3D printer. But yeah, the 3D printer is a really awesome tool to have because it allows us it gives us the opportunity to work with actually. It opens up a whole realm also for people who want to learn how to 3D model, because then we actually have a reason to have 3D modelers to model the robot and to be able to print parts should we need them.
Well, I also think it would also open the options because, everyone does have the basic components and parameters, but with a 3D printer, you can be so customize everything that you can actually create maybe not necessarily an advantage, but you have a uniqueness, and the hurdle you can say with figuring things out is smaller or less of a
Yeah,
time.
and it allows us, I mean, the biggest thing, it can't be, unfortunately, since 3D printers can't print metal, it does limit, we can't print any metal parts, which would be I mean, with that, we would almost be able to not even have to buy any parts in the future. But
Mm-hmm.
the plastic parts, previously, parts that we'd have to make out of, like, wood or,
Or
like,
mold.
hand-cutting plastic
Yeah.
or using cardboard. Our first claws were made out of cardboard, the second ones were made out of wood, and then the new ones are 3D printed. But it removes those, and so it just allows it just opens up so many options that we're able to do because of it. So yeah, that's a major thing that's really helpful. The 3D printer is an incredibly useful tool to have.
Well, I know that in 3D printing, that metal is coming down the pipeline, but would that be something that the FTC would allow uh, competitors to do, to 3D print metal? Because that would be
I
even
mean,
more
I think
awesome.
the thing that would be right now. It's so absurdly expensive. Those sort of
Hmm.
printer. I don't think the FTC is worried about that. They have to even like considering it or worrying about it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think in the future it would sort of depend. The metal printers are a lot more dangerous because they have to
Yes.
be a lot
Fire.
hotter to actually melt metal. Um, so I think it will be short of a thing at their discretion once it comes into existence. I think existence. They want to, for one thing, they're careful not to allow any parts which are so absurdly expensive that poorer teams are not able to afford.
Hmm.
And so I mean, I think schools, I think right now probably could buy a 3D printer and could actually, and with metal, probably could fabricate some metal parts. But I think the FTC would, if not just outright just not allowing it, they would at least frown upon it just because of the expense of it and that it's not appropriate. Right, I mean, it depends on really how expensive it is. I think if it was $500, the FTC would be okay with it. But if it was $10,000 and its team started metal printing things, I think they hopefully would have a problem with teams doing that because it would just be an outright unfair to teams that can't afford to be able to buy
Plop down.
$10,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I really enjoyed speaking with you, Ray. Perhaps maybe after regionals, maybe you can do this again and you can give us a little update and see how things went and with the status of your robot and your team. But I really appreciate you coming on and talking about uh, your experience, your robot, and your fundraising efforts with Doge4Robots.
yeah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, sure. We can see what happens after around January 31st. We'll see what happens in that competition, and it might. We can keep in touch. See if there's if you want to do it again at some point. That would be fine.
And
I don't. It partially depends on how much the robot. I mean, if there's anything that's really worth talking about and change, because right now the robot's nearing its final design at this point. Like there's our biggest thing. We're testing some new claws and fixing the autonomous program. But yeah, we can definitely whether it's. I mean, I'll definitely keep just doing some text posts on r/Dogecoin. But yeah, we could if we could do another podcast. I could come on again if you want sometime in the future.
okay, and what is your username on Reddit so people can keep an eye out for you when they see the posts?
U missing no 01. So just missing no 01 would be it. And so all if you search Doge4Robots, the only results for Doge4Robots are posted by me. So that's
Hmm.
another way to find my username. So yeah.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on, Ray. This will be posted on my podcast show on Tuesday, and I will email you a little bit updates to make sure that I have all your information correct. Okay?
Sure.
All
All right.
right.
Well, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome, Ray. You have a good night, okay?
You too.